Continue to follow breaking news today. This morning, Spirit AeroSystems announcing it's furloughing 700 workers at its Wichita plant. 12 News reporter Brock Wilson joining us live. He has who will be furloughed and how the company came to this decision. Brock?
Yeah, Keith, Spirit tells me those 700 employees work on the 767 and 777 projects. Spokesman Joe Bacino calling the move inevitable, given all the struggles at Boeing right now. Boeing workers in the Pacific Northwest have been on strike for over a month now, and that's limiting aircraft production. Now, Boeing has a backlog and doesn't have any way to store those new airplanes, so Spirit is no longer filling orders. Now, despite these struggles, Bacino says Spirit leadership looked at a number of cost-cutting measures as an attempt to avoid these furloughs, but he says they became unavoidable. When asked what it will take for conditions to improve at the company, Bacino says a lot hinges on the strike at Boeing.
Unfortunately, if this strike, the labor strike, continues beyond November 25th, we'll be forced to make even starker decisions to include layoffs and additional furloughs.
So here's how the furloughs will work. Those 700 workers working on the 767 and 777 projects will be furloughed for 21 days starting October 28th. Bacino really highlighting Thanksgiving as that deadline for when conditions need to improve at Boeing for Spirit to avoid having to take any further cost-saving measures. Keith?